we are talking about Jane, not Jane Eyre, author
Jane
of
Austen.
Jane Eyre.
Oh,
We're talking about
the
it's
Brontes.
Jane Austen versus the Bronte sisters. Okay, so there were three
Match
Bronte
up.
sisters.
Oh,
There were three
sorry.
Bronte sisters,
Yes.
and Charlotte is the one who's most well known for Jane Eyre. And then Anne wrote Wuthering Heights, and then there was a third sister. No, Emily wrote Wuthering Heights, and Anne wrote The Tenant of Wildfell Hall.
Wuthering Heights is pretty famous too. I wouldn't say that Emily is less famous than
Yeah, I
Charlotte.
meant Anne was less well known, but Charlotte was the one that was like first popular, I think. At
Yeah.
least it says. But I was gonna say, when I was in high school and I was first reading Jane Eyre in English class,
Yeah.
my English professor said that the three Bronte sisters, they grew up on a parsonage and their water supply was coming through the graveyard, and so they were like all of them were always sick all the time because their water was contaminated.
Oh my God. And that's why they.
Um, well, it was posed as a hypothesis for why they write such dark fiction.
Yeah, yeah.
But then
Oh
it's
my
also
God.
interesting if you think about Mary Shelley. If you consider Mary Shelley and the Bronte sisters, like they're all writing horror essentially.
Kinda.
And
Yeah, I guess.
the closest of Jane Austen's book to horror is Northanger Abbey.
Yeah. I couldn't call any of them horror.
I
You're
mean, I
pushing
wouldn't
those
call it horror,
boundaries.
but like it's the closest. It's the
It's
closest
not.
of it.
You wouldn't necessarily call it horror. I think it's that whole kind of overly dramatic, kind of
Mm.
Victorian style of writing, where everything was all kind of, dark castles and
Well, it was
brooding
gothic.
heroes and gothic. Thank you. Yeah, gothic
It,
kind of
and
stuff.
and
Whereas
to me, gothic is a form of horror.
I think I just have issues with horror because my idea of horror now is like movies like Saw or,
I don't know. I don't watch
Freddy.
those.
No, well, I don't either for a very specific reason. But, like Freddy Krueger and The Nightmare on Elm Street and all those ones, like, whereas that
Well,
kind
but
of
I
what,
think there are thematic elements for a lot of modern horror movies that you can see in things like Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre and Northanger Abbey.
okay, maybe. I haven't read, okay, full disclosure, I haven't read Wuthering Heights. I started it and couldn't handle it because it was so there. And that was a
Yeah,
technical
well,
term.
they have this weird um Heathcliff and Kathy remind me of Scarlett and what's his
Rhett
name?
Butler.
Rhett Butler
Red. Yeah.
from oh my god, I'm blanking on the name of that book.
We all know. Yeah, what's
Gone with the Wind. Gone with the
Gone
Wind.
with the Wind? Yeah.
There we go.
Phew.
Yeah, but like most of Jane Austen's other stuff is more pure romance.
I wouldn't even say she's pure romance though. She's making very specific um uh kind of commentary on life and times. Like the way the mother, like, so for example, the one with Elizabeth and Jane that we were just talking about before, the mother in that movie, and is it Pride and Prejudice? Is that the one that's Pride and
Yeah, it
Prejudice?
is.
Yeah. She the way she talks all the time, and she's just this annoying woman who just, like, I just think there's characters in there that are, it's not simply just a romance, it's actually, I mean, I love it for the romance, don't get me wrong, but there is a real sense of commentary on her times and the way things were, and I think that's part of why so many people love them too. Like,
Yeah, but I think if you're gonna state the genre, that it is definitely
a love story. Okay, yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Did any of
I
the
think
Bronte sisters get married?
um I
Should we look it up? I have a feeling they didn't. That's why I asked the
yeah,
question.
I don't think they did.
And the same for
Um
Jane
I
Austen.
do know that I think they published under pen names. I don't know if they shared one or not. Charlotte wrote and published as Kerr Bell. Oh, I remember.
So I think Bronte might be her father's. Oh no, Bronte seems to be their surname.
I remember my English teacher also saying that the Bronte sisters, they picked pen names that where the initials matched. So there was Kerr Bell, and Ellis Bell was Emily, and then Acton Bell was Anne. Because it was,
is that what they originally published under?
Yeah.
They didn't actually publish as the Brontes.
Because it wasn't acceptable for women to write fiction.
Okay. All right, good. So in terms of the characters, then I think we've got Kathy and we've got Kathy, Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre.
You'll have to describe Kathy's character to me. She's kind
of like a bitch. I mean, she wants, in a way, she's kind of like how Marie Antoinette is stereotyped, where she wants everything to be however she wants it to be. So she wants Heathcliff to be Heathcliff, but she also wants Heathcliff to be polished and cultured and a gentleman, and she wants her big castle and her palace, and she wants her like wild, rugged moors, and she wants, to hang out with the servants whenever she wants to, but she wants to go to parties at the same time. So she is forced into positions where she has to pick one thing or the other, and whenever she tries to pick one thing or the other, she gets like really unhappy and upset because she's missing the other thing. And then she's also very, willful and annoying. So like,
would you say she's got gumption?
I don't know. Heathcliff definitely has gumption. I don't know that Kathy does. Kathy, I think, is a little bit too spoiled and too manipulative to really have gumption.
Okay.
Because she never really tries to figure out any sort of compromise. She spends her whole life stringing Heathcliff along, and then, like, whenever she wants her pretty dresses and her ribbons and her parties, she goes and hangs out with the neighbor and ignores him.
So yeah.
And he can't like socialize with the neighbor because they all think he's, beneath them, because he was like some random guy that Kathy's father decided to raise for nobody knows why.
So we can almost say that for the purposes of Bronte versus Austen, that maybe Kathy has no gumption. So therefore, we might almost have to.
We might almost have to eliminate her from the list.
Yeah, but I don't know. Jane Austen has a lot of gumption, I reckon. So she might make it to the final round against.
You mean Jane Eyre?
Jane Eyre. Oh my God, Jane Eyre. Sorry. I can't even get the names right. Jane Eyre.
Let me see. I want a list of
what?
Austen.
Jane Eyre books. So we've got Austen's books. I think we have to pick the most, and I think we have to say Sense and Sensibility, which is Eleanor and Marianne. Pride and Prejudice.
So Pride and Prejudice, we have Lizzie. She's obviously the obvious choice for that book,
I think Lizzie is going to have to win. Do you know, if we were gonna say who's going to win the Gumption Prize, it's going to be Lizzie. My money is betting on her. Or if we're going to use Emma, Emma has a lot of gumption.
Girl from Mansfield Park, what's her name?
I don't know.
Fanny from Mansfield Park. I think she does have gumption.
So Mansfield Park is the one where she was in love with this guy, and then
her mom is there's three sisters, and her mom is one of the sisters. And the other sister married the vicar and doesn't have any kids, and then the third sister married the like head of some estate.
Yeah.
So the vicar and the sister like live right next door to the lord and the sister, and they like hang out all the time. And then this third sister, Fanny's mom, married for love instead of material wealth. And so Fanny has a ton of siblings, and they live in this tiny little townhouse on like the river in London, and basically there's a very distinct social class difference. And so the Lord offers to take Fanny and foster her. And so she grows up with him and his kids, and she's always sort of an outsider.
Is that the one where they have the starting scene, or one of the early scenes is they're putting on a play of some sort? Is that the
they
one?
do. It's not in the beginning, it's in the middle.
Okay.
But yeah, they put on a play because the older brothers, like, basically the older brother is a sot. But yeah, it's a good book, and she has a lot of gumption, I think, in that. I don't know if I can compare her to Lizzie though. Lizzie is more outspoken, but she's also the legitimate daughter of a lord or of a gentleman, and so she's not afraid of breaking social customs or of getting kicked out of the house or whatever if she speaks her mind. Whereas Fanny has to be politic about what she says.
Yeah, because it describes Fanny on the thing I'm reading. Fanny is sensitive, shy, intelligent, virtuous, with a good sense of morals. But her status at Mansfield Park as a dependent poor relation intensifies these traits. But she has to be careful what she says, basically, because she's the poor relation, you know. Whereas Lizzie is in a small community, and she isn't. They're not wealthy or anything, but she's sort of held in a certain esteem within that community, and it's a rural community.
Right, she's an equal amongst everyone, and she's not worried about
holding herself back.
Right.
Or insulting people or whatever. Yeah. So she has more of a all right, well, we've got that sorted. Elizabeth Bennet wins.
What about Emma though?
Emma's pretty cool. I like Emma.
I like Emma too.
I have this vision of the movie version of it with Gwyneth Paltrow in my head.
Oh yeah, I've seen that a couple. The one I watch most often isn't with her though. I have to. It's the one with the guy in the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes. The actor who plays Lord Blackthorne in that is Mr. Knightley. In the version of Emma that I like grew up on. So I went and saw that Sherlock Holmes, and I was like completely distracted the entire movie. I'm like, but it's Mr. Knightley. What? It's Mr. Knightley. What happened?
That's like watching Colin Firth in anything else but the right movie.
Oh my goodness, Colin Firth. Okay, Colin Firth in the one where he's the lord in England and the mom is like in New York, and she's finally decides, okay, I'm gonna go find my dad. It's a
I know what you mean, and I haven't seen.
You know what I mean? What it's
like
called.
she goes. So it's
the woman who plays Caroline Bingley in Pride and Prejudice with Colin Firth is the woman he is like engaged to and rejects in this other movie.
See, that's a problem with it.
Like, oh, poor actress, she never gets Colin Firth.
So Colin Firth, right? Which I'm trying to remember which one it is that he's in. Is it Is it Pride and Prejudice? It's not
Oh,
Pride and Prejudice.
it's
It is
a.
Pride and Prejudice, isn't it?
He's in the Pride and
Yes.
Prejudice miniseries, which is the best
Yeah.
of all of the Pride
Yeah.
and Prejudice renditions.
So that's the one that's like 6 hours long, right? I got introduced to that when I was at university, and we literally spent we watched TV for 6 hours solid, and I'd never done that before in my entire life. But there was no way you were
Between
stopping
the
me.
ages of 14 and probably 20, I would make my friends watch that with me every time I had a birthday party.
Yeah.
If I had a birthday party and they were like spending the night, we would watch that movie. And we would start at like 7 p.m. Actually, that's not entirely true. What I would do is I would make like high tea, and they would all show up at like 2. We would have high tea, and we would go watch like the first like 2 hours, and then we would have dinner, and then we would watch the rest.
I'm getting all sorts of good gossip today on this episode of Gumption.
Yeah.
Finding out all the embarrassing secrets of
my life.
Childhood obsession. Well, see, it says that Pride and Prejudice came out
very frequently. I'm actually really excited because there was a while where I couldn't watch it because I was separated from my DVD collection and I didn't have a DVD. So, but now
you're back.
I'm back.
And I tell you what, like the movie version that had old Skinny Winks, what's her name? Oh, what is her name? The English chickadee who played the latest version of Pride and Prejudice. That was on TV.
Keira Knightley. I don't like her. It's not her fault that I don't like her. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sure she's a lovely person, but yeah, I didn't like that version of Pride and Prejudice because it was, you know, it seems so weak when you compare it to 6 hours long and Colin Firth.
Yeah, and it wasn't. It was the script writers who just didn't adapt it as well. I mean, the 5-hour-long miniseries version of it is so amazing because there are whole passages that are word for word from the book.
Mm.
And I think probably there were copyright. My goodness, the cat just opened the door. She decided that she wasn't going to be outside anymore.
Cats are like that.
Let me in. No. Okay, fine. I'll let myself in. Hi, cat. Say hi.
We're having a cat break in the podcast. We're going really well today.
We're so on topic. At least we're still talking about the Austens, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. I think we just agreed half an hour ago that Lizzie Bennet wins, and
she's eating my pencils.
Tell you what, though, I only just read. Yes, you stop laughing about the pencils. Pay attention to me. I only just read Jane Eyre like maybe 5 years ago, which doesn't sound very long ago in the scheme of things, but it just feels like it's really recent. And I really loved it. I was expecting not to like it for some reason. It sounds like it's going to be horrendously long and boring, but actually it was really good.
Yeah, it is actually really good. I did like reading it, and actually I haven't actually read any of the other Bronte books, even though I have a few of them, because there are parts, and this is true of a lot of writers of that era, they wrote really long, boring bits into the narrative. I cannot read Charles Dickens at all. I can't stand his writing.
No,
because he was paid by the word, and so he wrote everything in cat. Stop it.
Everything in cat. Right, well, I don't think he did that. I don't think he wrote everything in cat language. Yeah, no. And it's funny that he is now so popular, and I guess maybe it's the theme and the
adaptation to musicals and to movies and to plays of his work are really fascinating because the plot is really interesting and the characters are really interesting. It's just his style that I can't stand. So like I've seen theater adaptations of Nicholas Nickleby and of A Christmas Carol and a bunch of others, and they're all really interesting stories.
That's
And like
the thing,
Oliver
though.
Twist and stuff.
There's a real change in the style of writing that we as an audience accept. Like the in his time, that was probably really racy, really quick language. Whereas now, in our time,
Well,
we've got
and
books are competing with movies and other forms of entertainment, so they have to be a lot faster, a lot quicker, lot get to the point more.
yeah.
So if you took those themes and those stories, and rewrote them into kind of modern times, they'd all probably be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Even between now and say the 50s, and books that aren't that old, you read back on some books and it's just like, whoa, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Although it goes for TV shows too. Have we talked about like MacGyver?
No, I haven't watched any really old TV shows because the jokes are too dated, and I think like this. I don't know if we talked about this.
Younger.
That's true too.
You're a lot younger than me, and so I watched MacGyver the first time round. I was watching MacGyver when he was new and exciting and cool, and I thought he was, number one, really sexy. Oh my God, what was I thinking? Number two, incredibly smart and witty and amazing. Oh dear God, you watch them back now, and they are awful. And that the things that were happening were like these new and amazing. He was getting to these situations, and he would use duct tape to get out of it. Like that was just And,
is that where the whole duct tape fixes everything comes from?
Potentially, because that's all he used to do. He'd have a bit of duct tape and a pen, and they'd have an explosive device out of those two objects that he would use to destroy the room door that he was trapped in, and then kill off all the baddies. He wouldn't actually kill anyone. No one would die. And just, I don't know, he would, pick up everyday objects, and the next minute he was escaping from
I don't know.
windowless rooms. And
I've tried to watch the original Star Trek a few times because I feel like I should, since I'm a fan of Star Trek. But
there's not that many episodes. There's only like 13 or something. Some really small number.
Really? The Captain Kirk ones?
Yeah. No, I mean, maybe not more, maybe more than 13. I'm just going to look it up right now. But no, there's like, very few, because they actually were going to can it, because it's become more of a cult favorite after it's, since since it's kind of
like, I grew up watching sort of round two of those shows, like The Next Generation and Voyager and everything. And I've tried to go back and watch the originals, but the like innuendos and the jargon and the cultural jokes are dated and like not PG anymore. Not PG, that's the wrong thing. Not politically correct anymore.
Yeah.
And so like I noticed that.
Yeah, well, no, it's totally not PC. It was cancelled after 3 seasons and 79 episodes because the ratings were really low, and it was only several years later that it became a hit on broadcast syndication. So it was created in 67, 66. Between 60, so from 66 to 69, they did 3 seasons. It was canned, and then it was repeated on another channel, broadcast syndication, I guess that's what that means, throughout the 70s, and then it became a cult classic because of the repeats, not because of the original series. Isn't that funny?
That is funny.
Yeah. And now,
when did the spin-off seasons start?
Of
like Next Generation and Voyager and all those. When did those originally air? Because by the time I was watching them, I think they were
old too. So what's it called? Next Generation.
Yeah,
they were like the 80s. They didn't come around.
Were they the 80s? Were they late?
Even the 90s? Yeah,
because
maybe
if they were
90s.
if they were actually airing in the 90s, then that's when I was watching them when they were coming out.
Okay. Here we go. Star Trek Next Generation was a series created by Gene Roddenberry that ran between 1987 and 1994.
Oh, okay. So then I probably was watching actual original. Well, that's fascinating to find out.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
Which is actually nothing to do with Charlotte Bronte or Jane Eyre.
But it does have to do with TV shows and old ones being less good than new ones.
Kelly is just going to listen to this and go, what were they on? Without Kelly here to maintain and
random cat appearances, she's like about to try and walk on my keyboard and like ruin everything.
No, don't do it.
No. Just little glimpses of tail to be distracting.
Let's talk about Jane Eyre. I feel the need because we haven't really talked about her, and
So you've read Jane Eyre, right?
Yeah.
So do you think it's believable that
that a man would keep his wife locked in an attic?
No, but that like, is it even like, does it even make sense that they supposedly are in love with each other? Because to me, that was always like, there's a couple movie versions where it sort of makes sense, but like the book version of it is like they spend all of this time being like confused, and then they don't ever talk about anything meaningful, and then suddenly like they can't agree about anything, and then suddenly they're getting married. Like, what?
I was fully into it. That's all I can say. And I hate books that don't like, I've had a couple of recently where I've started to read them and they'll be like all these inconsistencies in terms of how the character's feeling, and one thing going one way and one the next minute. So I feel like if it had been inconsistent, maybe I would have put it down and not liked it. But then,
yeah, I mean, I think it does make sense. I think her feelings do make sense the whole way through. It's just I can't really relate to her version of what it's like to be in love. Maybe that's my problem. But I actually really can't understand his perspective at all.
Well, because it's in her point of view the whole time. Like, it's all deep within her perspective, isn't it? So from what I recall. So you never really know, because she never really knows until the very last minute when he's blind, isn't he? And he declares his love for her, and she's kind of like, he's sending her away. At the very end, he tries to send her away because he's blind and he thinks he's useless.
But he wanted to marry her before he told her about his actual wife. Like, he was going to commit bigamy. Yeah. And then she gets really mad, which is why she leaves.
Yeah, which she would. I mean, someone's trying to... It's the secret wife in the attic who's crazier than a loon. I think you might mention that to your prospective new wife. I don't know, just as a thought.
Yeah.
So you have to admire her for leaving. She could have just stayed and just gone, oh, well.
Well, but you also have to admire her for going back. I mean, after... what's his name, vicar guy, is like, I'm gonna go on a mission and I love you and you should come with me. And she's like, he's really nice. I should want to go with him. Why do I not want to go with him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm going to go back to the crazy man with the crazy wife.
Yeah.
I have a thing, though. I have a thing for that era, books in that era, like Georgette Heyer kind of Regency.
Have you read Elizabeth Gaskell?
No. Who's Elizabeth Gaskell?
Oh my gosh, you're gonna love her books. So there's the one that I love the most, and there's another good mini series of it. Wives and Daughters.
Okay.
There's Wives and Daughters, and then the Wives and Daughters is about the daughter of a country doctor. So she's like, there's also a bit of an ambiguity in terms of social status with that one, which is also really cool because the doctor is treating all of the low class people, but he's also treating all of the high class people. Yeah. And he's sort of in the middle, and she spends a lot of time with one of the local lords and his family as like the companion to his wife because his sons are like off at school.
Yeah.
And then her mom dies when she's little, and her dad remarries. So there's a little bit of a Cinderella theme.
Okay.
As well. Yeah,
I'm just looking her up. Sorry.
It's a big thing.
It's actually like from 1864, so she's another. I was thinking she's going to be a modern writer, but she's another writer from that era. Okay,
mm-hmm.
I'm totally going to read that. Thank you.
You're welcome. It'll occupy you for a couple weeks. It's a really big bad book.
Is it really? Oh dear God.
Yeah.
See, I'm scared of big books because I just totally just keep reading. I can't. I get into a book and
then you do nothing but read. Yeah, I do.
I
that
know,
too.
I do. No, but you can't do that when you've got a 4-year-old child. Like she goes, "Mum, I want dinner now." I'm like, "Just a minute. I'll just there's an apple. I just got to finish this chapter. Go eat that apple." Mom, I'm hungry. No, just a banana right next to the apple. There's a banana. Yeah, it's not right. It's not appropriate parenting.
You need to learn the art of reading and cooking simultaneously.
No, but it's also
sound. It's possible to do.
It's also really bad to kind of ignore your children. Like they kind of want attention, like to she's going to grow up with all sorts of kind of like she's going to go to therapy because her mother read books when she was supposed to pay attention to her. Yeah.
Well, okay, here's a solution. Read the books out loud to her.
Are they what kind of books are they?
Well, they were PG-13 writers back then.
Yeah,
they're PG writers. I mean, a lot of the stuff is going to go over her head, but there's not anything that's going to cause her nightmares.
No, good. I've been reading her Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Do you know who that is? Roald Dahl.
Yeah, my brother's reading Matilda right now.
Talking of terrible female characters, I love Roald Dahl. He's one of my favorite authors. But man, reading it back now when I'm not a kid, like all the female characters are terrible. Like if we're gonna, they would not.
Yeah.
Maybe Matilda. Okay, I'm thinking of in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like basically, there's Violet Beauregard and Veruca Salt.
But Charlie's mom is awesome, and Charlie's grandmothers are awesome.
She appears very little in the book. Like Charlie's mum is not really she's more of a placeholder in the book. So yeah, she's probably awesome. But like then there's the mother of Augustus Gloop, and then there's they're all just awful. Anyway, sorry. I suppose they can the only nice ones can be Charlie and his granddad. So and Willy Wonka. Yeah. So they're all mean. So
Wait, did Charles Dickens write about any admirable woman at all, or was it only female writers who wrote about women who were actually worth reading about?
Charles Dickens. So he's the crazy old lady who's raised a young girl to be a man killer. Not literally, but kind of break their hearts because her Mrs. Havisham, and I can't remember the name of the girl that he falls in love with.
No, all of the things I'm thinking of are not Dickens.
No, and I mean, I tell you what though, like men, especially from that era, probably wouldn't have bothered writing about too many female characters, really. Like Charles Dickens, the fact that he had.
That's sort of why I was asking.
The hero is more likely to be the sympathetic hero, the one that you're supposed to engage with, and
even
is always going to be a guy.
Wrote about women who weren't really all that great. I mean, I love Tess of the Dubervilles, but she makes some really poor life decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no gumption. Tess does not have gumption. I haven't read Tess of.
Tess does not have gumption. No.
No.
Okay. And the other ones I remember, I would say no as well. It's interesting though, because there's like the myths and the legends of like all of the women from the Arthurian legends and like a lot of the famous women in history in Europe who were the people who were influencing all of these writers back then. They had strong female characters, so why didn't they write about stuff?
What happened? Was it just in that era? See, that makes you wonder, like, because we go through these periods of women being in a certain time, and like maybe prior to that, Regency, Edwardian, kind of Victorian time frame, were women more out there, and it was just in that kind of particular period when they were so controlled. And so I mean, medieval times, I suppose women were controlled. I don't really, I have no great knowledge of history,
was sort of the like era of courtly love, right? So I think in literature it would have been different, but there's not a lot of things that have survived since then that I've read there's a lot of things that I've wanted to read, but they're all they wouldn't qualify as literature.
You think of all the fairy tales, for example, that we were talking about last week. You notice how I ignored that because they were, a lot of them are female characters, female leads. So are they aimed at women? Are they aimed at women saying this is how a proper woman would act? I mean, this is what happens if you don't.
I think they are, but it's also interesting because I think modern culture has lost a lot of the fairy tales that are about men. I think there are a lot. Yeah, I think there are a lot of them that people just don't know about, and they don't read and they don't talk about them because they don't know about them and they don't read about them.
So women have kept fairy tales alive because
selectively, yes.
So were women the ones?
Women, I don't know. That's my hypothesis.
That's an interesting hypothesis. I'm not sure about that hypothesis, but
other than the fact that I know there are fairy tales out there about men, with men as the main character, and male ideas of what it is to be a good man and to transition from being a boy to a man. That are not legends, they're actually fairy tales.
What about Hansel and Gretel? So Hansel and Gretel, boy and a girl, and they're pretty equal in terms of their main character status.
They are pretty equal, although I think Gretel does more to defeat the evil witch, and Hansel is more practical about making sure they can find their way home.
What about the one that we talked about, the shoemaker and the elves? Male.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but there are a lot of fairy tales about princes from the prince's perspective, that a lot of people have never heard of.
Okay.
Maybe Isabel Wyatt has a collection of fairy tales she's rewritten, or maybe that she wrote based off of other fairy tales, that it's called The Book of Fairy Princes, and it's a bunch of prince stories.
Do you think that's because women prefer to read about more other women, and I don't know if it's always been the case, but women are definitely stronger, more common readers now than, I
don't know, maybe. I was looking at this graph earlier today about the genres that writers who are successful write in. And like the biggest genre overall was romance by a lot. So I think there's something about the romance of the fairy tales that women in particular are attracted to. Yeah. Like bad stuff happens, and the characters, by virtue of being good people, end up getting a better life at the end. Even if there's a fairy godmother or like a magical animal that helps them, they only get that help if they're deserving of it. You have to be kind and generous and, helpful.
Do you know what? That's also more about your personal characteristics.
Right. It's almost like the fairy tales are a guide for self-development. And we mentioned this last week too. And then the myths and the legends are a guide of what to do when bad stuff happens to your country or your kingdom. And you have to defend like your community.
Yeah.
Because like Beowulf isn't really the greatest guy on a personal level, but he's good as a leader. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't do anything horrible quite, but he's not perfect either.
There's a lot of fairy tales like that though, where the characters aren't necessarily perfect. Are they? Aren't they? Are they? I don't know.
I think there are a lot of fairy tale adaptations where the characters have flaws, but I think the actual original fairy tales are so short that the flaws are not the bad characters have flaws. but the good characters don't usually. If anything, their flaws are being too perfect. I think they're very stereotypical of this is what an ideal good person should be like.
It's more about the plot than the characteristics of the characters, if you will. That
it's a crystallization of a particular virtue. So if the virtue is honesty, then that person is never ever going to tell a lie ever, even if it gets them in trouble. And if the virtue is loyalty, then they're never going to go against whoever. Yeah. So
laughter in the background.
Yeah. I guess it's a funny part.
Anyway, back to Jane Austen.
Well, I think we've concluded that first of all, Elizabeth Bennet has the most gumption of all of the characters, Jane Austen and Bronte sisters.
Yeah.
And second of all, we've also agreed that the Colin Firth Pride and Prejudice BBC miniseries is the best.
Yeah. Go out and see it. Go and find it right now if you have not heard of what we are talking about.
It's really, really good. I'm really sad that it's not on Netflix yet because it should be.
I had it for a long time. I feel like going.
There's a good version of Mansfield Park. The version of Mansfield Park that I like is on Netflix, which is very exciting.
Okay, that's cool.
It's got a weird looking image. It's like a yellow background with the main character in like a sort of maroon dress in the front, but it's actually a really good version of it.
Okay, so they just did a bad picture.
And that's actually an actual movie length movie. It's like 2 hours.
So it's 2 hours long. The Northanger Abbey one that you're talking about.
The Mansfield Park, yeah. It's like a normal movie. It's
I was looking at Northanger Abbey. So what's Persuasion? Is that the one?
Persuasion is the one where there's like 2 characters and they fall in love, but they can't actually marry each other because he's like the youngest son and she is like a middle daughter, and so like they couldn't. He can't ask for her hand because he can't support her.
And then they meet again years later.
They meet again like 30 years later, yeah. And the lake house with what's her name? I'm seeing a picture of her. Sandra Bullock.
Oh, okay.
The lake house has Sandra Bullock in it, and Sandra Bullock's character likes Persuasion.
Oh, okay.
And the lake house has an element of it because they've been like writing to each other through the mailbox of the lake house for like a year, and like there's like this time warp thing where she's in like a year in advance of him, and she has to tell him not to do something so that he doesn't get hit by a bus and die.
Yeah.
So they have to like put their relationship on hold for a while.
Yeah. Until and the only reason she knows that he's died is because she stopped getting letters. She stopped getting letters from him, didn't she?
No, well, and she realizes that before this all happened, the reason she went to the lake house was because she had witnessed him get hit by the bus and had tried to save him and had failed. And she's an ER doctor. So she needed like a time off break thing. So she went and lived at the lake house for a month. And they start writing to each other.
And then she saves him because she realizes who he is.
Right.
Nice. Okay, good. Now I recall the story.
Yeah.
Of a completely random movie that has nothing to do with Jane Austen.
It has everything to do with Jane Austen. It's like the plot is loosely modeled off of Persuasion. Persuasion is an analogy for them. Yeah, yeah. And the actual physical book, like she loses her copy at a train station and like he picks it up and then he like hides it somewhere for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only reason she could stay in the lake house was because he was dead, because he died, and
I think
she.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's the reason that they give for her taking time off.
Yeah. Okay.
To go there. Yeah.
Nice. All right. What other movie versions of them are there? So it's linked with Emma, supposedly.
What's linked with Emma?
The Persuasion, because they're both set in Bath, and
I can't actually. It's like computers. My technology is being fussy, and I can't look at my Netflix because my brother is using it.
Oh, good. Excellent.
Anyways, Jane Austen is the best. When I was 14, I decided that when I grew up, I wanted to be a truly accomplished young lady, all because of Jane Austen and that Colin Firth Pride and Prejudice.
I didn't get into Jane Austen or any of this stuff until I was in. I don't think I read any of her stuff. I remember watching it in university, which was in the 90s. And I read her books kind of probably late 90s, early 2000s. So I wasn't something that I was into when I was, a teenager or anything. As a teenager, I was into Anne McCaffrey. I would read about dragons.
Oh, I tried. I had friends who told me I should read Anne McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And I tried to, and I got 100 pages in, and it was awesome because there were dragons and there was stuff happening. And I turned the page, and the next chapter is like a completely different set of people on like a space station on a desert moon thing. And I like was flipping through because I wanted to get back to the dragon people because I didn't care about the space people. I only cared about the dragon people. Yeah. and I couldn't find where it switched back.
That's weird. I wonder what book that was, because really most of the books are all about set on Pern with the dragons. There's nothing to do with spaceships. Except maybe one of the books that was describing, because they originally were colonists that come in a spaceship, arrive on this planet and discover this terrible stuff called thread that destroys everything it touches. It eats any living organism as soon as it lands on the ground. So it would just, like, if it landed on you, it just eats you alive, kind of thing. And they arrive on this planet. Yeah, it was pretty terrifying. And they arrive on this planet and they don't know they didn't know that it existed, because it only comes around once every 200 years, and it lasts for 30 years or something. Like, it's not all the time. So they arrive and they actually create the dragons. They find a local species that's kind of like a lizard that can fly, sort of thing, and they genetically make it go bigger. They have these geneticists who are with them on the.
So they give these dragons gigantism.
Yeah, no, they do. They create these dragons out of using fully scientific. Like, it's all kind of scientifically kind of. Well, she explains it scientifically, and me being not scientifically minded go, oh yeah, right, that's exactly how it happened. And they create the methods by which they fight thread, and essentially then that's so then and it's 200 years later, and they've kind of gone back to this medieval society that has these dragons that fights, and then when the next set of books starts, it's like this medieval society, and thread hasn't been around for 200-300 years, whatever the time frame is, and it's almost a myth. And so when it does start falling, there are very few dragons. They aren't prepared for it properly, and then it's them fighting to get back into the preparation for it, and they have to breed more dragons.
That sounds way better than whatever I was reading.
Yeah. You should read.
I think I still have that book, so maybe I'll try and read it again. I don't know.
Maybe find another one. Like, email me and tell me which one. But the best one is called. It's about Melody, and it's Harper. Oh God, what is it called? Dragon Singer, I think. And it's really short, and it's almost a young adult book. And it's just my favorite book from even now. I love it. So, anyway, and the Harpers, anything to do with the Harpers, which is basically it's kind of like the communications people, and they're the ones that go around all the different settlements and sing and tell the songs and stories. Yeah, bards, essentially bards, but for the Pern. Anyway, so again, completely off topic, but that was you know. And
we're great at being off topic. Hopefully we're entertaining nonetheless.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm not entirely certain that we're entertaining, but you know, I'm having a great conversation.
Well, I thought, you know, there would be more debate about which of these heroines would be the most gumption-y.
We agreed pretty early. I didn't even really think about it. I thought there'd be more of the gumption, and maybe Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre does have maybe more gumption than I'm giving her credit, I suppose, but
it's hard though, like with Jane Eyre and with Fanny, because they're more quiet personality types, it's hard to notice the gumption when it happens, you know? Because with someone who's very vocal, like Elizabeth, if she's gonna do something gumption-like, or if she has a feeling about something that stems from a place of gumption, she says so, and she talks about it, and she does it. Whereas other people are maybe more quiet about it.
Do you think it's harder for a quieter person to have gumption, and therefore it's more significant when they do?
I don't think it's harder to have gumption. I think it's harder to be recognized for having gumption.
So maybe they should get extra points for the fact that you know that they're quieter characters, and the fact that you know they have gumption means that they are being really gumption-y, whereas Elizabeth Bennet's so outspoken that you kind of go, oh yeah.
Maybe, but I don't know that it's the character who should get extra points for having gumption. I think it might be the authors for letting you see inside their heads enough to know.
No, we're acting as if the characters are real. I'm sorry, you've gotten the wrong end of the stick. We're not giving any credit to the authors at all. These are real people, and you will not convince me otherwise.
Okay. End of discussion.
End of discussion. Good. I'm glad that we're on the same page.
Okay, what are we talking about next week? We have a bunch of things. Maybe we're talking about superhero women or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The women of X-Men.
Are we talking about the women of X-Men, or are we talking about like Wonder Woman and
well, we can have Wonder Woman as well. She was do you know what? I was thinking about the superhero thing the other day, and I was thinking, you know, who's my favorite superhero and stuff. And you know who I came up with? My favorite superhero of all time is the greatest American hero. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. You'll never
I have no idea who you're talking
about. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be? Okay, clearly I am much older than you.
I recognize the song, but like,
it's this guy, and he was a superhero, but he wasn't very good at it, and he was kind of learning how to be a superhero, and he could sort of fly sometimes and not all the time. And oh god, I used to love that show. And it's just funny that he's not very superhero-y, and he was my favorite superhero anyway.
But who is he?
It was just it must have been, I don't know, maybe it was from the 80s. Okay, I'm going to look it up. You need to Google this, but I'm going to look up the greatest American hero. And you know, the fact that I just sang you the theme song tells you how much of an impression this program made on me.
Well, I recognize the song. I just, you know, pop culture.
It only aired
90% of the time.
It aired for 3 seasons from 1981 to 83. And it had William Catt as teacher Ralph Hinckley, and FBI agent. And the series, he is given superpowers after a group of aliens gives him a red suit that grants him superhuman abilities. Unfortunately for Ralph, who hates wearing the suit, he immediately loses its instruction booklet and thus has to learn how to use its powers by trial and error.
That's so unfortunate. Oh my goodness.
They should remake The Greatest American Hero. That would be amazing. Anyway.
They've referenced it in other things. I don't know if you've heard of Sanctuary, but they reference it in that.
No, what's Sanctuary?
Oh, it's a really awesome. It was an indie. It was even more indie than indie. It started out as a series of like web episodes
Okay.
like 10 years ago. And then eventually they got enough funding to make it into a TV show. But 90% of it is CGI. So they had to develop like better CGI than existed already in order to do it right.
Wow.
And it's about this woman who like has put together a series of sanctuaries for like magical creatures so that they can not be killed off by people and not abused by people and or not kill all the people depending on what kind of magical creature they are. And it's really good, but at one point there's like a creature that morphs into this red suit and like attaches itself to this guy, and then he becomes a vigilante and then starts causing problems, and like the suit is essentially a parasite that's like eating him. So like he's becoming addicted to wearing the suit.
Oh God. Okay.
But the
Sorry,
suit
I
is
was
like
reading
destroying
about
him.
it.
Anyway, it's a really good show.
Okay.
But I think I don't know, they actually ended it. There's like 3 seasons for sure.
It says
I had
something
the
about it being
first
cancelled,
one.
but then it might have
It
been...
started getting complicated, and then I don't know if they ever like it around the middle of season 2, I think, or maybe the beginning of season 2, there starts to be a longer theme going through, like a longer conflict instead of it being episode to episode. And they lost their funding before they could tie up all the loose ends.
Oh no.
Which is why I only own the first season, because I can watch the first season and not get annoyed that I don't know what happens at the end.
Yeah.
Because the first season is still
in there. Another movie, a series that we could talk about next week when we talk about superheroes is the TV series Heroes.
Oh yeah, I really like Heroes. I want to rewatch it because they just renewed it. I think like one of the I've heard rumors that it's coming back.
Well, it came back on New Zealand, and the original series I really, really liked, and I watched the first couple of episodes, couple of seasons, and then I lost interest, and I think it just got too...
There was something weird about season 3. Yeah. Season 3 started to get weird, and then it got canceled, and then but now it's on Netflix, and I've heard rumors that it's coming back, but I don't know when or how.
I think it must already be back, because there was a new Heroes season that aired on New Zealand that was kind of like the girl that was a cheerleader. She's dead, and it's kind of like the father trying to figure out what happened or something. And I think it's kind of after a big gap.
But she has the healing power, so how did she die?
Well, that was part of the question, and I don't know if she's definitely dead, but he was kind of like, how could she die?
The guy who was causing problems beyond just Sylar was also a healer guy. Like there was a healer guy who had been around for centuries who was causing problems at some point, and then there was a whole like stuff with the different companies, and the dad's company versus the mom's company, and you have to pick one side or the other.
Anyway,
it was a good show, and it was really complicated in a good way, and it was probably the goriest show I watched.
Yeah, there you go.
It's even more gory than Criminal Minds. Criminal Minds, usually they like don't show the gore until it's static.
Yeah, so you just see lots of dead bodies.
Yeah, but you don't see the like violence in action.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. I think we should go, because we really not completely